Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, if anybody has a cell phone or other noise-making device, if you'd be so kind, just to make sure that's in the silent or vibrate mode, if you will. For those of you I don't know, my name is DJ Wright, and on behalf of our family and our care team, our thoughts and prayers have been with you for several weeks, and actually years, and ultimately since Pete's passing this past week. We're going to be doing several things tonight. I looked down and smiled because you have to smile at a funeral. Even though your heart is breaking, you should be so filled with joy. I know most of you were here for a while and had a chance to look at all the things around the room, all the other items in the other room. And I think all of you know that things really don't matter. It's the love that brought everybody here tonight. Whether you knew Pete or just knew his daughter or one of his granddaughters or son-in-law, whether you were comrades in arms, police officers, you're all here together because that's what we do. We come together and we celebrate when it feels like a link of the chain has been snapped. But funerals and life celebrations, to me, and this is not just because I do them every day, but they remind us that there is no break. The chain looks a little different, but it's still just as strong as it ever was if we allow it to be. And our hope tonight, and I know this is Ingrid's hope and her daughters and everybody involved with planning this celebration, was that it would be just that, a true celebration of a man who simply loved people and loved to serve. So it is in that vein tonight that we're going to be doing several things. Again, I hope you can stay for all of them. And we're going to begin, again, we have many titles for Pete. Some we can say in public, others we can't say in public. But among them were Chief, especially of the Delaware Township Police Department, where he served for so many years, and also Sheriff of Hunterdon County, where he also served for many years. At this time, I'm going to ask the current Chief of the Delaware Township Police Department, Chris Kane, along with the Sheriff of Hunterdon County, Fred Brown, to come forward to relieve the honor guard and to have a few brief remarks.
Chris Kane, the current Chief of Delaware Township. And one story popped out in mind, so I'll tell a quick story. The first time I ever met one. I was probably 6 years old, and I was in the Surgeonsville General Store. My mother took me there because they had penny candy. I don't think anybody that knows Surgeonsville knows penny candy. While I was there, the door opens up, Warren walks in, I looked over, his uniform on, white shirt, cowboy hat, cowboy boots, big revolver on his hip, and once I got a look at him, I could not look away. I thought it was a cowboy or the Lone Ranger or somebody walking in. And I said to myself, this is the coolest guy I've ever seen. So he did his thing, spoke to my mother a little bit as everybody knew him. And when he left, I said, Mom, who was that? She said, well, it was Chief Peterson, the Chief of Police. And I think that was a very defining moment that I knew I want that. And grace of God, here I am. And I think I owe that to Warren, the chief, he sparked that young in my life. And I have a picture of him on my office wall in that uniform. I get inspiration from it. And the picture isn't the only thing. He was the first chief of the department, the first real full-time chief. He guided the ship, ruddered it in the direction he thought the department should go. And he passed, one of the important things as chief is you hire the right people and put them in the right position. So when he left, he guided the ship, he passed it along to Chief Ed Fleming. Chief Fleming, along with his vision, kept it going, on to Bruce Mast, on to Chief Ed Zolkowski, who's here with us tonight, and on to me. So the ship is still being ruddered by Warren, even though nobody knows it. It's been in that, it's going in the direction he saw. It's his vision. His legacy will always live on, because I will pass that on to who replaces me. So the family has a lot to be proud of. Chief Peterson. He's a good man. And, legacy will live on. Township.
Good evening all. I'm Fred Brown, Hunterdon County Sheriff. First, condolences to the family and all the friends. He was a great man. My story goes back to when I first became a cop, which was 1976. And I was called out on a case where there was had been a burglary, and we knew who had done the burglary, and we were waiting for a search warrant. And one of the houses that had been broken into was in Delaware Township. And the chief showed up at where this house we had, so to speak, staked it out. And we were waiting for the search warrant, and things were, chief was very impatient. And finally, we knew it was coming, so it wasn't going to be a big legal issue, but the chief said to me, he said, "Come on, kid." And he goes up and he literally kicked the door in. We got the suspect, and everything worked out great. The guy was convicted and went away, but that was my first encounter with the chief. And I knew then that he was certainly a character. And through the years, and every time I saw him, he always had a great story or a great joke to tell, and he always had a smile on his face. And that really said something about the man right there, that he was able to, whatever he did, he always did with a lot of passion. And everyone will miss him, and again, my condolences to all the family. God bless him.
Thank you both. I think it's especially important. I saw a lot of your faces as you came up, and you saw the honor guard standing up there. Many of you paused. Some of you went up and saluted. The men and women who keep us free, they do a bold work. Work that I kind of wished I did. Undertaking called me instead. I mean, both fabulous professions. And ministries in their own right. And it was very much a ministry to your father. They're not just the heroes of the past, but they're the heroes of today. And Chief Kane spoke of laying the foundation. Very important, because the foundation was laid for your father as well. And it started many years ago by men and women who, as America got formed, ultimately needed to be protected in some way. Men and women who joined the Army, which evolved into the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines and the Coast Guard and all the other wonderful branches of service. But we sometimes forget how important they are. Your dad never did. And in so much as he went on to become a founding member of the V.F.W. post. Sometimes people take fraternal groups for granted. I don't. Because I know we wouldn't be sitting here right now if it weren't for the men and women who've gone before. And so before we begin our traditional V.F.W. service, I want you all to pause for a moment of silent prayer and reflection, not just for those like Warren and these fine men who come forward in a moment, but for all those men and women serving around the world right now, so we can sit here and celebrate a life in freedom and without fear. Because in many parts of the world, my counterparts are worried about grenades going off, buses blowing up. Those are real legitimate fears. Imagine trying to do that when you lost somebody you love. Pretty hard. So it's by their grace that we're all here. So please pause for that moment of silent reflection and appreciation for all those men and women currently serving around the world.
Good evening. I'm Floyd Evans, the commander of the Surgeonsville Memorial Post, where Warren and I were both charter members. And the post was chartered in 1976. We're represented by 3 different posts here tonight. A post from Lambertville and the V.F.W. post here and the Milford Frenchtown post. We all served in various branches of service. Warren was Navy. I was Air Force. We were good friends. We talked about that. We argued about it. Neither one of us won. Warren moved into Delaware Township in 1969. I got there in 1966. I got to know him early on. We were good friends. We both had families that sort of matched, pretty wives, young children. We spent a lot of time together, and I got to know him very well. Delaware Township at that time had a toy police department. We had a guy who was a bridge guard, who guarded the Delaware River Bridge, and then part-time he was a cop for Delaware Township. And it wasn't working out real well, so several of us decided we wanted a little bit better department. And I knew Warren, I knew his history. Warren was a member, served in 3 metropolitan police departments. And he was a Navy boxer, a lot of energy, and just a bright, fun guy. So a bunch of us pushed to have him be our police chief, and we pushed hard. About that time I got involved in the township and got elected to the township committee and wound up as police commissioner. There were several people that made comments with Warren as chief and me as a police commissioner, but we won't go into the commentary that occurred. Warren was an outstanding police chief. Outstanding. A municipal department can do things the state police and bigger departments that are not associated with the town cannot do. Where you have children, young teenagers that get in marginal trouble, or when you have domestic problems, it can be handled on a local level with a lot less paperwork and much less dramatically, and just much smoother than it can be handled at a higher level. And this is what Warren did. There are many, many teenagers from Delaware Township that have an absolutely perfectly clean record that would not have had a perfectly clean record not for Warren Peterson. So I have a tremendous respect for him, and he was just fun. And we worked together for several years, and I enjoyed every bit of it. We did some things that I will not talk about. There are at least 74 Warren Peterson stories that I could tell. I'm going to tell 2 of them, and they're okay. They're just okay stories. Where we would not want to discuss them because the statute of limitations may not. I'm going to interrupt myself for just a moment because I have a flag that I would like to present to Warren's lovely daughter that I've known since she was very small. And it is my honor, my privilege, my pleasure to present this American flag to you, Ingrid. Thank you. The first story is about a break-in a house. Most of you know Marty Adams, the dentist. He's got a great big house. He refers to it as a tooter. It's so large, I call it a threeter. And it is big. And he was on vacation with his family. So he told the Delaware Township Police Department how long he's going to be gone, and he gave the department a key. And one afternoon at my house, I lived about 2 miles from Warren, I got a call, and Warren said, "The commissioner picked you up in 3 minutes. Marty's been hit. Marty's house has been hit." And so I go out to the front of my house. I live near the road. As soon as I got out, Warren comes by in his own car, and we head over the high rate of speed to Marty's house. Warren had a siren on his own car. He had a Kojak light. Who knows what a Kojak light is? Okay. There was a guy, Terry Savalas, who was in a TV series called Kojak about the detective. And he had a little red light that you plugged into a cigarette lighter, magnetically you put it on top of the car. Well, Warren had one of these. So we have the red light going and the siren going. Nobody on the road, so we're going like the hammers of hell. We go over to Marty's house. When we get there, there are 3 cars, 3 police cars already in the driveway. The door is open. And it's been opened. It looked like it hadn't been jimmied or anything. So one of the cars was a Delaware Township police car that was on patrol like it's supposed to be. And another car was from Raritan Township, which is backup and assist with the department, and then the one from West Amwell. So this is probably a Tuesday, Thursday night. There's not a hell of a lot going on anyway. So they decided big beautiful house had been burglarized, so everybody shows up. So we got now enough cops to virtually every room in the house, and we all searched the house to find this burglar. And during the search, we don't find the burglar, but we do find a cat that's supposed to be in the basement in a little room. And we do find a broom that's been knocked over in the living room floor. So all these smart cops that are there, we analyze it and come up with the answer. The maid came that day and cleaned the house, didn't put the cat away, didn't put the broom away. The cat knocked over the broom, set off the burglar alarm, and the cat is the damn burglar. The junior man put the cat in the basement. We put the broom back in the closet. We secure the house, and we all go home. The second story is even more fun, and it reflects Warren's personality. Warren lived on lockdown Flemington Road, and just above him on the corner, a young couple moved in, really nice young people, Marcia and Bob Nelson. And Bob was a veteran too. He was a veteran of Vietnam, joined that V.F.W post. Unfortunately, he's deceased now as well. But they were both a good couple, and Warren, good neighbor policy, goes over to visit them after they've been there a day or two, and just to see if he can help them out and answer their questions about the community and give them a little bit of orientation. And Marcia, he tells Marcia all the things that he's doing. He had horses, he had cats, he had a German Shepherd dog, and he had chickens to have his own fresh eggs and everything. That impressed Marcia, so Marcia decided she wanted her own hens to lay her own eggs. And Warren suggested that she go down to Mr. Higgins' poultry place. Mr. Higgins' poultry place was right in the heart of Delaware Township then, and right down the hill where the great crate race is, all those beautiful houses, that used to be where he raised his chickens and everything. Marcia goes down, she buys 10 hens and brings them back, and they have a place to put them and everything in nests. Well, Warren, very early the next morning, takes a dozen boiled eggs and goes over there and puts one and eats the nest. Marcia comes out later, and boy, she's just happy she can be, because all 12 of her hens magically laid an egg. And these are young, you know, they're really not laying yet anyway. But she takes them in, and then when she breaks them open, they're hard-boiled eggs. And Warren magically goes over a little later, and she's telling him why the hard-boiled eggs. He says, well, because Mr. Higgins sold you old hens hard-boiled eggs. And she bought into this story. She bought into this story. And she's going to go down there and rattle his cage. But luckily, before she went, she bumped into somebody else, and she's telling them the story. She says, the other person says, you've been Warrenized. And at first she was just a little bit livid. And then after it's so she realized it was funny as hell. So she got back in a good humor with Warren, but she managed to get even with him a couple of times because Marcia was pretty clever. Marcia went on to be on the Township Committee and served the community very well. Those are the two Warren stories, and there's several more, but I'm not going to tell those because, again, I'm not sure of the statute of limitations, and I'm partly involved. So, but Warren Peterson had a lot of energy. He was our police chief, and a very good one for several years. As police commissioner, 3 things that I did that were right. I hired Warren Peterson, I hired Eddie Flemington, and I hired Bruce Mass. They all served well. Eddie's here tonight. Thank you, Eddie, for doing the kind of job that you did. Warren, he just was the kind of person that when you were around him, you enjoyed him. I talked him into running for sheriff, and I was his campaign manager when he successfully ran for sheriff. That was a lot of fun. Warren somehow found, what's the flea market? Rice's Market, is that it? Over in Pennsylvania. Warren found a bunch of white hats, and he paid $1 a piece for them, but he bought, I believe, 100 of them. And so we took these white hats and put toy badges on the front of them, and that was the campaign motto. And everybody, Steve Ruby, the guy that turned out to be a Superior Court judge, was in the campaign. He wore a hat, white hat. The former sheriff, the first sheriff in Hunterdon County, wore a white hat. We had a lot of fun with it, but We won the race. One other thing that we did, the competitor, Frank Schumann, was his opponent. Frank was having a big picnic, and we hired an airplane to fly around over the top of the picnic. So we not only won the race, we had a hell of a lot of fun. But that gives you an idea of who Warren Peterson is. You couldn't help but love him. He was a good friend, and we hope he rests in peace.
My thanks, and thank you to all of you gentlemen. We'll have you return to your chairs. And in case you didn't get a chance to see Henderson for sheriff, there is one of the little badges right up there. One of those little toy badges that was saved. At this time, again, you saw all those men in front of you. Thought about, I hope you were listening, but I also hope you saw what they all went through over the years. So I ask, in that moment in your heart where you felt pride for America, like Warren does, I don't talk in past tense. It's in that same spirit that I ask you to just come to a humble attention as members of the United States Navy and one of our buglers from Buglers Across America, who, mind you, are men and women volunteer their time to come out to play taps live at funerals instead of the recording. Come forward now, and in advance we thank them for their service.
Detail. Present arms.
behalf of the President of the United States Navy, and the grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.
You may be seated, ladies and gentlemen. I may be an Air Force kid, but that can't help bring a tear to your eye. And I know Warren is certainly smiling down right now. So we're going to do a few things tonight, and I know some of you will be relieved that I will not be the only one talking. Thought that would get a laugh out of you. Maybe you want to hear me talk tonight. But, no, I will, yes. But we're going to hear from some of the immediate family, and then we're going to open it up if anybody does wish to keep their remarks short, because we do have a large group here. But if Warren did touch your heart in a special way, and you want to share that story with everybody, we're going to give you a chance in a little bit. I know people don't like to be surprised with that, so that's why I'm telling you now that we'll open it up later. And as I said to the family before when I came up to whisper to them, I told them to kind of look around, and you saw them start to look back. I did that because I wanted them to see what I see and feel what I know they feel, which is pure love. So point being, you can't say anything wrong when you come up here if you speak from your heart. But if you go more than 2 minutes, I have to pull a Warren in. MacGyver you out or McLeod you out. Does that not look like McLeod for those of us who do remember? I remember Telly Savalas. I wanted one of those lights too. I wanted to begin my talk tonight with a very simple phrase. His dash is vibrant. We talk a lot about the before date, what we think is the end date, and all that stuff that goes on in between. So when I was asked to officiate tonight, I was obviously humbled, number one, but then I stopped to think about how do you speak about such a larger-than-life personality whose life speaks for itself. And then that led me to the quote I decided for the back of the book. There is some thought. These aren't just automatic. Life is a journey, and it's the love that makes the journey worthwhile. Warren's journey is of love. It became very simple what I had to say tonight. Warren's journey is of love. His dash is vibrant. Warren's physical life may have ended as we know physical life to be. But where did Warren go? Has he left your hearts? Has Pop-Pop left your hearts? No. Has he left your memory of stories? And I do want to hear some of the other ones that you can't tell later. Of course not. So instead of funerals being looked at as an ending, I think we need to change our vernacular and start to look at them as celebrations of a new beginning. I also, if you open the book, I put in here a psalm because Warren was faithful. wouldn't say went to church every Sunday, but he found God in his own way. And this psalm, I think especially for a city boy that became a country boy, and very proud of that fact, Psalm 121 holds a lot of meaning. Right from the first sentence. I lift up mine eyes to the hills, from where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. His dash is vibrant. The Lord will watch over you coming and going both now and forevermore. He's still watching over us. I'm sure he's trying to keep Warren calm down up there, seeing all his friends and family that have gone before. But I challenge you, he is not gone. Not gone from the hearts of a young man who ended up to be a police chief after seeing that big old revolver and shiny badge, but knowing there was so much more behind it. To gentlemen who look back and recollect on stories that no young men should ever have to recall in their minds, but they do. And they're better off because of their collective sharing. So in the words that you hear tonight from everybody else, I challenge you to be a little bit more like Warren. Don't worry about the statute of limitations, but enjoy every moment to the fullest. And with that, I'm going to share some words by Warren's eldest daughter, who couldn't be here with us tonight, but is with us in spirit. And yes, it has to do with chicken eggs, so good theme going. As Warren's oldest daughter, my name is Marlo, and I just want to offer a few words of sentiment to those of you who have gathered this day to celebrate and remember the life of my father as you share personal thoughts and memories of yesteryear. I'm unable to come tonight in person, but I will be there in spirit as you repay my respects to my father as he receives the homage and honorary ceremonies that he rightly deserves due to his service to his fellow man. I would like to share with you some of my personal experiences with my father as a child growing up. One of the most poignant memories I have is when I was riding my bike and was passing by, and he was passing by on his way to work. He beeped his horn, and as I turned to wave, the bike skidded on the side, and I broke in part on the sidewalk, and down I went, face first. Once my father saw the extent of my injuries, he immediately picked me up and ran with me in his arms to the doctor's office a couple blocks away. Although I was only 6 years old, I don't remember the pain, but I'll never forget the love and concern that he showed me that day. On a lighter note, I recall the day when my father sent me out to the chicken coop to collect some eggs, not telling me that one of the eggs was an ostrich egg that he got from a friend. It wasn't enough to keep his ruse a cute family matter. He encouraged me to take the egg to school for show and tell. And when the teacher said that was impossible, I simply told him my father said it was due to the new chicken feed he was giving to them. That's just a simple sample of my father's funny antics. I am comforted knowing that he's free from his ailments and finally at peace and is in the safest place that he could be with our Heavenly Father. With love, Marlo. So again, through my funeral ministry, I am privileged and honored to get to meet and know families in ways that sometimes afterwards they're surprised they've said so much to me. But this I can tell you about the people in the first 2 rows. There's a whole lot of love there. They love their pop-pop. They love their daddy, who's the best daddy in the whole world. And as I said, when I was asked the question, does everybody say that their dad is the best dad in the whole world? And I said, many do. But every person who tells me that is 100% right. And this cute daughter may have said, I think you're right about that. And it is with that I'm going to ask Ingrid to come forward to share with us some of her thoughts and memories about her father. And before she comes up, I always try to learn something from our families. And one thing I learned, and I want to point this out because Ingrid taught it to me, is that there is a program that the VA puts on that not many people know about. 20 years in my ministry and I did not know, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about the VA. But there is a home program that can keep a veteran in their home or in a home where families can be there taking care of them. So they don't have to necessarily go to a nursing facility. It's a phenomenal program. And if it wasn't for Ingrid's tenacity and strength to make sure that her daddy got the best care there was, who knows what might have happened. But I thank you all for your strength because, as you know, many people would have just turned away because it's the easy thing to go to a nursing home, let things go their course, and then the phone call to me. But not Ingrid. Every step of the way, whether she was on the phone with me at the hospital, just sharing, whether she was sitting by her father's bed the day he died, holding his hand, telling him how much she loved him. You can't make up that love, which is why I put that quote on the back. Because you got that from your dad and from your wonderful, loving mother as well. So remember both of them tonight as you come up in their honor and speak on behalf of your father.
My first view this way. I didn't realize you were all back there. Thank you all for speaking in the stories, and it's all been wonderful so far. My dad was a lot of things in his life. He was a boxer, a policeman, a sheriff, a veteran, and always a cowboy. He was charming and big-hearted and a joker, as you've heard, and so many other adjectives all wrapped up in a larger-than-life presence that could fill a room. He loved the limelight, as most of you know, and attention, but he also loved pulling you into the limelight to share it with you. And not everything he did was for show. I've heard a lot of stories tonight from a lot of people that he did so many kind and benevolent things, countless things for countless people that no one ever knew about. And I think that's one of his greatest legacies. Of all the things about my dad that made an impression on me, and there were a lot, his genuine love of people, of God and his country, and his being a policeman, which he was a policeman to his core. It was innately a part of him that even in the later stages of dementia, he had this cop's awareness of his surroundings. A couple of years ago, some of you might know the story that my dad went missing. He left for a V.F.W. meeting in Surgeonsville, and he ended up past Scranton 25 hours later. He had no idea where he was or how he'd gotten there. And as my daughter Casey and my son-in-law Grant and I drove up that night to get him and drive his truck back, all the way home he kept commenting that someone was following us. It was dark, and I don't know how he knew it was the same headlights, but he kept turning back and saying, "Someone's following us." And I kept saying, "It's Grant in your truck." And he would say, "Who?" And I'd say, "Grant, he's in your truck." And he just didn't understand. He didn't remember driving up there. He didn't remember that he had taken his truck. He had no idea what I was talking about. But what he did know was that in his policeman's sense, someone was following us. That somehow, with all his brain fighting off the dementia and trying to hang on to his memories, all the things he lost, he was still a cop, deep down inside to the end. And although we thought that was so funny at the time, now I look back and I realize that was just part of who he really was. He was a policeman. His brain thought like a policeman. He also had a tremendous faith and patriotism, and that also never left him. There was so much a part of who he was that even when so much of him had been lost to dementia, he still recognized the flag. He had flags everywhere in his house, on his clothing, on his hats. There were flags everywhere. And he could still say grace. He maybe couldn't say it the way he used to, but he still wanted that to be part of our dinners, and his faith was so important to him. And also, everything in his home was related to being a policeman or a cowboy. So those things to me symbolized my dad: the police uniform, the cowboy hat, the McLeod coat, the cowboy boots. Those were all a part of him and symbolized him until the end. His love of God, his family, his friends, his community, Delaware Township, Hunterdon County, and his country, those were the last things that somehow remained long after his memories had gone. But I consider those his greatest gifts to me: his faith, his patriotism, and his love, and a legacy to everyone that knew him. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It means a lot to my dad.
Thank you, Ingrid. You're a good daughter. I'll never forget that. And a good lesson for your three girls, too. And I know they're going to come forward, and they didn't necessarily give me an order. I think they want, you want to go first? Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you, everyone. So on the way over, I realized that we didn't have a bottle of scotch anywhere. And we probably should have, because he would have appreciated that. So for those of you who knew my grandfather's sense of humor, and you've all heard quite a bit about it tonight, I thought it would be hilarious if I got an empty bottle of scotch and filled it with iced tea and then drank it while I was up here doing my poem, and that Papa would really find that hilarious, but I was told that would be poor taste and not such a great idea. But I thought you'd at least like to know about it, and he would like to know about it, and I thought he'd appreciate that. So I'm going to read it sober instead. So when I started looking for something that I could read, I wanted a poem that, to me, would symbolize what Pop-Up actually was. And Pop-Up was not a flowery person, and he was not a gentle person necessarily, and he was not a quiet person, so I was trying to find something that encompassed his rowdiness and his exuberance and everything. And so I found a poem by an unnamed author. If by some crazy chance this is you or someone you know, I have taken it apart completely and changed it to be more of what I felt Papa really was about. And both of my sisters, Casey and Britt, helped when I got stuck. So to me, I think it's what Papa would want. But again, if you were the original poet, I'm really sorry, because it's not what it started out as. So, a farmer's dying wish. When God promises that eternity waits for me, I'll take him at his word. So as I close my eyes this final time, I know I'm going home. I won't live in a cloud castle, there's plenty of work still to do. horses to care for and pastures to tend, as my purpose is born anew. I've no need for the wings of angels, my horse and truck will do just fine. My dogs who pass before me will greet me on the other side. And I'll build a beautiful homestead, no need for a door or locks. I'll remember you all and this land that I love while drinking my scotch on the rocks. So when you arrive in heaven, don't look for me where angels fly. I won't be in those pearly clouds or touching the sapphire sky. You'll find me in emerald pastures, more at home than I've ever been. A farmer's life after death is my wish, at peace, at home again. Thank you.
I think I need to borrow a copy of that, and I'll give you credit in the future when I read it, but thank you. It was beautiful.
I see what you mean. I don't have to tell you all that Papa was the kind of guy that made quite an impression, and he garnered a lot of admiration. But I'll tell you the reasons why I thought so as his granddaughter. He had amazing style. I think we can all tell from what's in this room. No one could pull off a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, though I think we all wish we could. He had a solid repertoire of jokes, which many of you, I'm guessing, have heard. Some of you may know by heart. I know we do. And that's made us a real hit at parties over the years. He was great for hay rides, expansive Easter egg hunts, saying grace, and really giving us an idyllic childhood, which I'm really grateful for now. He took forever to open Christmas gifts. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but he did. He was very careful and delicate with that, at least in his life. And though his dementia affected our relationship for actually most of my life, it got us to know him in a different way. I don't think he really ever knew who my husband was, but he was always delighted to see him, and he was very happy to hear his jokes repeated by Grin, which made us all laugh, I think, from time to time. And even towards the end, it wasn't always easy to talk to him, but I learned some things. I'll teach them to you today. Because as you may know, he was a proud Norwegian, and he was able to teach me a little Norwegian just in the past 2 years or so. I will probably butcher the pronunciation, but I'm going to ask that we do a little language lesson here, so I can leave you with a little bit of what I took from Papa. So I'll say a phrase and just repeat after me. Wooden Hunda. That was pretty good, guys. That means, how are you? Hanna Schnauze gamle Mann. That's pretty good, too. He's a dirty old man. And I know it's a bit crass, but I can't think of a better way to send off. A dirty but lovable old man. And as he would always say, it's no fun being an old man unless you're Warren Peterson, I think. Thank you.
I think I can pull some of that from my future sermons, too. That's okay. So at this time, if anybody does wish to come forward, all you do is have to just speak a little bit louder than normal. I would ask you to introduce yourself and just tell everybody who you are. Just kind of catch my eye if you'd like to come forward, and I'll have you come up. Terry Wright, that's my brother from another mother. With his American flag tie, Warren would love.
I met Warren in 1973 when I was a young reporter for the Hunterdon Democrat. He was a part-time policeman in Delaware Township, and he was like, I think, the self-appointed detective. So he would work on burglaries. And he would give me the news. Normally we got over the telephone. Now remember, for you young, this is before fax machines, this is before email or text messages or any of that. We got the phone we got it by telephone or by visiting the police station. But you didn't waste your time driving all the way to Surgeonsville because it was such a small force. The men would be out on the road. They got a call, they would lock the door. You'd be there pounding and there'd be no response because there would be nobody in the building. So he would give me the news, he would call me. And then one time, I remember I got a phone call at home. Hi, Pete Peterson here, I got a story for you. And that's when I first learned he was a publicity hound. But he gave us stories that other police departments didn't bother to tell us about. He told us he was, catching crooks, making arrests, getting stolen property back. So we loved it. It went both ways. I know that people like Floyd Evans and Harry Copeland, Ginny Hook, they were instrumental in his early times on the force. And he learned from his work in politics in South Plainfield how politics works. So he knew how to schmooze with those town fathers and mothers to get the force, to get the money, to get everything going and bigger and better. I probably saw Pete, I always called him Warren because he was already Police Chief Warren Peterson. I met Pete maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Where did we all meet? At the shop, Wright. And we exchanged pleasantries, and then of course he had to tell me a joke. And it was off color. I said, go ahead. I cringed. He told it. We shook hands and went our separate ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Who else would like to share a thought or a memory? I know it's hard to stand up in front of a group. Sure. Good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to share a very short story. When I first met Warren Peterson, I supported Warren. My name's Lou Reiner, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a lifelong resident of Hunterdon Township. Currently, I'm a Hunterdon Township committee man. That's enough about me. The first time I met Warren Peterson was when he ran for sheriff against Frank Schumann. I supported his campaign, and it was a lot of fun. Put his signs out, and I'd like to think that I made a good friend, and I'd like to think Warren Peterson made me a better person. Because I can say from a personal experience dealing with Warren on a personal level, he was the straightest arrow that ever could be. He said what he meant what he said, and he was just genuine in every sense of the word. He was a real person, and he carried a sense of values to his grave. His love of country, patriotism, love for his fellow man, and his kind touch. He was a very kind person, and he did a lot for Hunterdon County and his country. And I can remember, it was pretty funny, at that time, when he ran for sheriff, well, I'm a committee person in Hunterdon Township now, I know that when you're in politics, you need to watch every step you make because your constituents are watching you. Well, at that time, I was totally unaware of this. After I got done putting his signs out, the remaining signs that I had, I attempted to return to the sheriff's office. I actually got inside. Whoa, no, please don't. You can't return them here, you gotta return them to headquarters. And at that point, it was funny when this happened because Warren had kind of a smile on his face, but he was a little red in the face. It was a little nervous. But Warren gave me my first lesson in politics. Watch everything you do. And just to conclude, befriending the man, I did tip shots with Warren. I had a couple of scotches. I did a couple of belts with Warren, and he was a fun-loving person. And he will be sorely missed by all. Thank you for listening. God bless you.
Thank you, Lou. I just want to add one note about his run for sheriff. That was a story that came out to me as we were writing his life legacy. You want to know about a man, he hired his opponent as his undersheriff right away. What does that say? It is about politics in a little bit, but at the end it was just about doing what was right for your fellow citizens. And when Ingrid told me that story, I said, well, it's gotta be included because it's just so profound on talking about who the man is. Thank you, Lou. Is there anyone else who would like to share a thought or a comment? I know there are many, and I give this homework out sometimes, and I see no reason why you can't have it either. And it's very simple. And it's a stark reminder to us all that one day we will all be sitting in these seats for somebody we love. And someday, our family and friends are going to sit where we sit now in tribute and honor to us, we hope. Wouldn't it be pretty amazing if in 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months, a couple of years from now, Ingrid goes to her mailbox and gets a letter from somebody with a story about her dad, just because. The love that Pete puts out starts with all of us. You can see how it inspired his girls, how it inspired some of his friends, lifelong friends. So I implore you all to look at your own heart, because we all leave funerals wanting to be better people, wanting to do the right thing, and then the text messages go off, Terry, in our pocket, the emails have to be checked, and life goes back to a new norm for you all. But wouldn't it be pretty awesome if we share those thoughts and those memories? So I encourage you all to get a pen and paper out and write down a couple of these stories and keep his legacy alive. It's such an easy, simple thing. But in the busyness of life, we forget about the basics. And the thing that I've learned about Warren Pete Peterson is the basics. Live and love. Not hard. It seems so hard.
And laugh.
Always laugh. So, I wanted to read two things before we conclude tonight. One is really in homage to the way Pete faced what we call an end, which you know I don't like. But it's a poem by the Indian chief Tecumseh that's from the movie The Act of Valor. They actually stole it. But I think Pete did this. And I think if he were here, in the physical sense, he would have already told me I've gone on long enough, number one. And number two, I think this is what he'd want you to say or hear. So live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion. Respect others in their view, but demand that they respect yours. Love your life, perfect your life, beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. Prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the great divide. Always give a word or a sign of salute when meeting or passing a friend, even a stranger, when in a lonely place. Show respect to all people, but grovel to no one. When you arise in the morning, give thanks for the food and for the joy of living. If you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault lies only in yourself. Abuse no one and no thing, for abuse turns the wise ones to fools and robs the spirit of its vision. When it comes your time to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with the fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. Warren sang his song, and he still sings it to our hearts if we only allow ourselves the ability to hear. Live your life, beautify your life, love your life, and perfect it. Warren grew each and every day. Even when medical issues arose and changed him, he still grew in a different way. But that was okay. Hard for us, but okay for him. So he would want you all to live, laugh, and love, and to grow each and every day together as one community, as one spirit. And it is with that faith and that hope in eternal life that I would ask you to take the hand of the person next to you, and if you feel comfortable enough, pray the prayer that Jesus taught his disciples and that Warren would so heartfeltly say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So in a moment, as we conclude, so you kind of know what's going to happen, I didn't want to take the spotlight from Warren by singing, because you all hear my illustrious voice. That's all you'll be thinking about when you leave today. So I didn't want to take the spotlight from him. But Ingrid and her daughters, all of whom I hear have phenomenal voices, are also not singing. I was getting there. But they did something at Mom's funeral
I gotta get going now.
that seems so many years ago.
No, I gotta get my car.
But
I can't wait.
they sang a song,
Yeah, that's how it happened.
and it was a beautiful thing. And Ingrid said, DJ, I can't sing. The girls, they don't want to sing. Can you figure something out? I said, okay, I'll figure something out. And then I thought to myself, sometimes lyrics are so beautiful. Sometimes the music's so beautiful. Sometimes when you put them together, it's beautiful. Sometimes it's not. But this particular song that they were thinking of is absolutely beautiful. Whether you hear the notes or whether you hear the lyrics. And hearing them both is a beautiful thing. So I am going to read the lyrics in a moment. And then at the conclusion of that, you're going to hear the notes. And it is our hope, as that music starts to play, members of my care team will be coming row by row, and we'll be inviting you to come up via the right-hand side, pass by where I'm standing, say a little prayer, touch the urn, whatever you feel comfortable with. And I've been honored to care for several police officers throughout my ministry, and one of the things that I like to do, I've always thought of our veterans and our police officers as the bedrock of our society. So I invite you all to take a rock from his urn. Rocks are beautiful in that they can change shape, they can change form, they're still a rock. The substance of what this is, whether it's ground down, doesn't matter. It's still as strong as it ever was in its own beautiful way. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I hope you find inspiration in this rock. Keep it in your car, keep it in your pocket, keep it on your desk. Hold it to your heart when you need a little bit of that pity to flow and joke inside you. And then afterwards, I would just ask you to continue out into the other rooms so that those who are left have some final moments of quiet and solitude before they depart. I would ask that you refrain from greeting the family as they've had a pretty long day. We want to give them a chance to just spend some time with Pete before they depart for the evening. So it's with that faith and hope that I ask you to listen to these words from the old Protestant hymn that's still sung every Sunday. Who knows the hymn? that might describe Pete. Amazing grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace that will lead me home. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Yea, when this flesh and heart shall fail, and mortal life shall cease, I shall possess within the veil a life of joy and peace. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see.
Yes.
Only Warren would provide technical difficulties at this hour. 2 seconds.
Here, can you see it? Yep. Keep the face and try. Keep the guy straight. That's what I try to do. Like we try to do to you. Many years ago. Yeah, you should. Really good. United States was 32 years ago. Where's the time go, right? Like I said, we had a bunch of you guys go all over the department. We trained them to the States. We had to go every county and all that. Yeah.
They filled your car full of leaves.
I was seeing it.
Remember that? The cops on Delaware did that.
They were tired. They were